You'll notice that many airlines have already stopped direct flights from China, have pulled that down. We're seeing a significant, and the Department of Transportation could comment on the numbers we're seeing, or Homeland Security. We've seen a significant reduction in people from the U.S. going to China, people from China coming to the U.S. already. This just helps us focus our efforts so that we, as we're dealing with the unknowns that Dr. Fauci spoke about earlier, unknowns around incubation period, unknowns about the speed of transmissibility, unknowns about asymptomatic transmission, unknowns about severity, that we take appropriate measured prudential steps so we can focus our resources, because of public health is identify people who might be symptomatic or might have the disease, diagnose, isolate, treat, contact trace. That's a significant undertaking, as we have already done with the 6 individuals in the United States who've been positively identified. We have to focus those resources.
On this episode of Just Informed Talk, we take a look at the latest new Q posts, and we look at the fact that Q is continually dropping proof after proof, showing that what we are a part of is a large military operation that is seeking to expose the criminal corruption not only within our own government, but around the world, that our mainstream media has been bought and paid for to cover up. So we're going to talk about QAnon and a bunch of other breaking news stories, so stick around and check it out. Hi, my name is Craig. Welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. You guys know the drill. I always say thank you if you've hit that subscribe button. If you haven't, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications, and then select the all button so you get notified every time I post here on the channel. So you guys should definitely do that. It helps the channel out big time. But with that, we always go check the Q boards, and yes, we have a bunch of new Q posts. We're going to get into all of these latest Q posts. Plus, we're going to talk about breaking news that's been coming out about all different types of connections with Hunter Biden, and now it's going to be these sheiks, these Middle Eastern sheikh, I should say, a Saudi prince or sheikh, and also we're going to talk about the coronavirus and what is actually happening. There's a lot of people doing a lot of hard work and research into what is happening with this virus, how it's spreading so quickly, and asking a lot of very important questions. And we're going to talk about those questions here on this channel. Plus, Twitter's banning people for talking about it, and that is unacceptable in and of itself. But we're going to take a look at the latest new Q post. We left off at 3817. We're picking up at 3818. And of course, the first one here is January 31st, 2020, Freedom Day. And it's the picture of the Union Jack flag representing the Brexit, the British exit from the European Union. And this was a major occasion. It was celebrated with all types of festivities. And there are so many people who are who work so hard to get this done. It's a big day for the people there. And it is representative of a new push inside of our entire world, right? To have sovereignty, to have independence, to not be slaves to these unaccountable, unelected bureaucrats that live in Brussels. You know, when you're in London, or you're in wherever, you're in Ireland, or you're whatever you're doing, right? So that to me is another independence movement, and it's a big push, and they've tried to shut it down. They've tried to keep it from happening. They even did everything they could to basically sabotage it, and they failed. And that's what Q is pointing to, not to mention the fact that Q called this back January 31st, 2018. Q said Freedom Day was coming, and so no coincidences, right? It's all there. And the exact post 658 and 659 here say first Freedom Day, freedom, Q. And then it says, effective yesterday while standing on the Statue of Freedom, POTUS freed those good people who are currently being blackmailed, threatened, and enslaved. Those who stood chanting USA were freed. The shot heard around the world. And this is talking about, obviously, Trey Gowdy here is what the read on it was at the time, and I think it's still Trey Gowdy. I'm not sure exactly what that's referring to, other than Trey Gowdy was one of the people who came forward and started helping to start the investigations and start a lot of the pushes for truth inside of our government and accountability. And then he ended up having to resign, or deciding to resign, and now he's no longer in the House. But with that, it says, we the people, Freedom Day, light, Q. So these posts themselves are both on January 31st, 2018. Obviously, January 31st, 2020 is what Q is pointing us back to right here in 3818. And just, take and do with that what you will. The next one here is this Miami Herald article, right? Now, this talks about a Debbie McCursall, can't say that name for some reason, Powell, embracing Trump's impeachment role. It says, in the midst of a rift on trade policy during a campaign rally in Sunrise last week, President Donald Trump name-checked Representative Debbie McCursall Powell, a Miami Democrat who will have a say in this week's impeachment hearings as the probe shifts to the House Judiciary Committee. Yet, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, they just have done nothing, Trump said to his supporters. They're doing nothing, folks. They're doing nothing. It's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing. So, Congresswoman McCursall Powell, where is she? Is she here? I'd love to see her and Congresswoman Donna Shalala. And, of course, we know Donna Shalala is the other corrupt Democrat politician in Miami, formerly, I think, the president of the University of Miami there. Don't ask me how I know that. But think about this, right? We have this post here from Q, right, saying read that article, and that's basically President Trump calling them out. And then it says to read this article right here. Well, this is an older article. This is from July of 2018, where it says Congress candidate's husband has financial ties to scandal-plagued Ukrainian oligarch. Wow. So President Trump calling his shot once again, as he knew that the Congresswoman here was obviously a part of the Ukrainian scandal that we saw today. So, or we are seeing today, I should say, being completely exposed in Congress through this, impeachment hoax, sham, whatever you want to call it. So that's exactly where we're at, and that's what Q's saying. Q says 5-5. So it's loud and clear. Do you understand? It says, welcome to the Democrat Party. Well done, Anon's Q. So obviously we know that this Ukraine scandal goes so much higher. I mean, John Solomon, I think, was talking about this on an interview today, where he was saying that, look, there's this scandal goes so much higher, and there's so many corrupt politicians who had their fingers dipped into this Ukrainian, corruption scheme, where they were basically given an option to say, hey, you can go to Ukraine, you can work with these people, they're corrupt as the day is long, and you can go ahead and get whatever deal you want set up behind closed doors so you can make millions of dollars off the books as long as you write a few favorable policies for the Middle East. And they use this as a point from which they were bundling money for campaign funding, and the Democrats basically were getting a lot of their funding through these illegal operations where you have multiple foreign nationals bundling money together and then pushing it into the United States elections via, certain loopholes here and there, right? For instance, there's a Saudi sheikh who is not even a U.S. citizen, whose wife is a U.S. citizen, and his family, his kids are. So he's using them to funnel money into the campaign coffers for like Hillary Clinton and the rest. And this is being exposed systematically by people like Rudy Giuliani and the rest. And that's what they talk about when they say they have bigger stories coming down the pipeline, because we're going to continue to see that what Ukraine basically was the Democrat Party's version of Tammany Hall. It was literally just a place where you could go and buy and sell, broker politicians and policy favors at will using cash as a bartering tool, right? That is what we're going to be uncovering. And that's the Democrat Party, and that's what President Trump's trying to expose, and that's why they're trying to impeach him, because he's exposing it. And of course, here's the next one. This is a meme here that's got, haven't you figured it out yet? It's not about Trump's corruption. It's about making sure you don't find out about their corruption. And it's 100% true, because you can see here Schiff, Pelosi, Nadler, and I think that's John Lewis here. Not sure. But there you go. right? And then Q connects us to this article right here talking about Adam Schiff has a Ukraine connection that's coming under scrutiny. Well, what do you know? Here it tells us the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff, who has played a leading role in investigating the Trump-Ukraine scandal, is facing questions about his own connection to a Soviet-born businessman who has raised money for his campaign and whose company has received lucrative defense contracts from Ukraine's government. That man, Igor Pasternak, the founder and CEO of Worldwide Aeros Corp, which makes blimps for military and commercial customers, his business also has been involved in weapons manufacturing, working with the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense to produce modified versions of the M4 and M16 rifles, according to reports. Well, you know, just stop right there. Adam Schiff, he's a Democrat representing the Hollywood Hills. Do you think all of the virtuous Hollywood moral class of moral priests would ever condone a weapons dealer being in bed with one of their favorite politicians who they think is the most eloquent and well-spoken politician since George Washington? Give me a break. In 2013, Pasternak hosted a fundraiser in Washington for Schiff, who later came to embrace a strong stance in support of the United States sending military aid to Ukraine during its conflict with Russia. Before this time, Schiff rarely, if ever, mentioned Ukraine. Fox News' Laura Ingraham said on her show Thursday night after detailing Schiff's connection to Pasternak. But after the fundraiser, he used multiple television appearances to basically demand that we send money and arms to them. Well, it's funny what happens when a billionaire weapons dealer from Ukraine starts throwing you fundraisers and helping to possibly bundle money illegally to be put into your campaign coffers by foreign nationals who have only one interest, and that is in buying your support for whatever policy action they need to get their corrupt businesses going or their corrupt government, scams running. So that's literally where we're at right now, right? And this is an article. I'll leave a link to it if you want to read the whole thing. But that's what Q's pointing us to and just saying, look, these people are the ones who are going to have to be held accountable for their crimes. And the next one says, who was the 17th director of the NSA? Well, I'll give you a hint. His name's Admiral Rogers. And here he is. It says the Pentagon and intelligence community chiefs have urged Obama to remove the head of the NSA. So this is an old Washington Post article, the Washington Amazon Post, fake news central here. But sometimes they have real news stories. And what do these real news stories serve a purpose for? They serve a purpose for pressuring policymakers in the government to do the bidding of the globalists who are in control, who secretly have been pulling the strings behind the scenes, who they have to give these directives to via these public articles, let's just say hypothetically, maybe. And then it says Pentagon, and it talks about how they were urging for the removal of Admiral Rogers. Well, I wonder why they were urging for the removal. Right here, this is from November 2016, where it says the heads of the Pentagon and the nation's intelligence community have recommended to President Obama that the Director of National Security, Admiral Michael S. Rogers, be removed. Well, guess what? Admiral Rogers knew where the bodies were buried. Okay, just like General Flynn and the rest, they knew what criminality this previous corruption was up to. They knew everything, and it's a terrible burden for them. But at the end of the day, these people are the ones who stood up. This is the man right here, the patriot hero of the story, along with President Trump and others. He went to President Trump in Trump Tower. He said they're wiretapping you illegally. They've gamed the system. They violated the Section 702 of the FISA court. They've illegally got these FISA warrants to tap all your phones and surveil everyone that you ever talk to. And they're doing it in order to set you up to lose your office, to overthrow a duly elected president, to actually run a coup d'etat. If you don't think President Trump was working with some of these guys long before this whole thing started, I think that there's a high possibility that might have been happening. But that aside, President Trump was being given this information regularly, and it only became apparent after the meeting with Admiral Rogers, I guess, that it was actually happening. And then as this is him becoming the president of the United States, right? That's a big deal. He became the actual presidential nominee or he was, elected to be the president of the United States. So Admiral Rogers went there and said, look, these guys are setting you up. Well, he's the hero of this story, I think, one of the heroes. And that's what Q is pointing us to. And a lot of people say Admiral Rogers is Q. at this point, what difference does it make to take a quote from the Hillary defense? But it's just, it doesn't matter at this point. We know what Q is. Q is military intelligence. Q is an active effort to give a parallel construction to the real news that the fake news is trying to hide from us as the American people, because you have to have an informed electorate in order to make decisions that are going to help keep this country safe and prosperous and successful going into the future. The biggest problem we have today is that you have an uninformed electorate who is lulled to sleep by sports and entertainment and this Luciferian complex that's been developed around those two things to make them into these brainwashing factories of just, giving them mesmerizing, songs, intonation or tones and frequencies and symbolism and imagery that just brainwashes these kids. It turns these kids' brains into mush, and then they just are programmed to become agents of chaos in the globalist anarchy that they want to spread in order to bring down the systems that are right now working, like our government, our sovereignty, so that they can replace it with a global sovereign. They can have more control. They can take away more of your rights. It's a pesky little thing called the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and I think they're doing everything they can to get rid of it with their satanic agenda. But that's just one man's, guess, right? So here's the next thing. The Q says Q-proof here, and this is basically a graphic of what we can only assume is a Q-proof, and it looks at the Intercept article, right? Former NSA director is cooperating with probe of Trump-Russia investigation from December of 2019, December 20th, then back to July, 6 months ago. Q tells us directly, Attorney General and Rogers meetings, Durham and Rogers meetings. Why did Rogers retire? Why did Rogers visit POTUS at Trump Tower without authorization shortly after a skiff was installed? Why did select former ABC directors call for the removal of Rogers? Why did POTUS move his transition command center base of operations from Trump Tower the very next day? Q. So like I said, Admiral Rogers knew where the bodies were buried. He knew that they were illegally surveilling President Trump. President Trump got the information. He left Trump Tower, went to his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey, never to return, by the way, to Trump Tower ever again, because he knew that they had basically wired the whole place. And wouldn't it be convenient, the fire at Trump Tower, that was a convenient way to remove some of the plants that they had put in there, things like that people have speculated on. And the fact that you have it being reported now openly that Rogers has met the prosecutor leading the probe, Connecticut U.S. Attorney John Durham, on multiple occasions. So they're going to get to the bottom of everything. And I think that's definitely something to remember. And that's an anon who puts this, Durham and Rogers meetings, and Q just points to it. So finally, the last post here is "In God We Trust," and amen to that. And it's the American flag. And we've only had a few of these posted. I think this is the 9th one, so I'm not sure if that's symbolic or something, but you guys can let me know what you think down in the comments of this video. A few more stories before we go. This is a crazy story. Raytheon engineer is arrested for taking U.S. missile defense secrets to China. Now, this is a big story that just broke, but it talks about this Wei Sun, who is a 48-year-old engineer at Raytheon Missiles, decided to go on an overseas trip, right? So he asked the company, Raytheon, if he can take his laptop, which obviously is very classified information, right? They decided to just not even check in on him. They said no, but he still left and took his laptop with him. And then he lied about where he went, saying he only went to Singapore and the Philippines, when it turned out he went to China. And this is, mind you, they found this out because he wrote a letter right after he came back saying that he wanted to quit his job and move abroad, right? So I wonder what that's all about. But you can read it here for yourself. I'll leave a link to this story. I just thought when I saw this, I was like, wow, this is crazy, because the type of missile information stuff and the defense information that was stolen always jeopardizes national security. And you're looking at these traders who continue, I mean, allegedly, I'm not going to get ahead of myself here. The guy's still afforded a day in court, but it doesn't look good for him, right? Especially since he lied about apparently being in Singapore and the Philippines not in China, and then it turns out he went to China and he was trying to quit his job. He sent an email on January 7th suddenly announcing he was quitting his job after 10 years in order to study and work overseas. I mean, how much more obvious does that have to be? I mean, come on, I hate to laugh. It's just so absurd. How could you not look at these people and think, wow, desperate people do stupid things. But you can read this whole story if you want. It's very crazy, and I think it ties into what we're going to talk about with this coronavirus too, because I wanted to cover that briefly. But another thing, just another interesting story here, that sudden death of an NYPD detective, another one, heart attack this time. May he rest in peace. Just thought I'd share that. Those keep happening. And of course, talking about corrupt campaign fund, operations, you have Ilhan Omar, who's literally, apparently, according to the Gateway Pundit's reporting here, had 40% of her campaign spending go to her, her boyfriend or / campaign manager / person she was having an affair on her husband with. I have no idea. It's crazy, the story that this woman, and the fact that she's still in Congress with all of the, the fake names and the marrying her brother allegedly. It's really getting to the point where she needs to be investigated. And I think I've heard from multiple sources that it seems that she is being investigated. So another thing is we talk about more corruption, right? In these campaign bundling foreign schemes. We talk about Hunter Biden and the sheikh from Saudi Arabia. And you can read this story for yourself, but the story goes a little something like this. I guess Hunter Biden, never really had a job in his whole life that wasn't given to him by his daddy. And this sheikh, who happens to be like an air conditioning salesman from Saudi Arabia, like that's a hard job, but is a multi-millionaire, billionaire, just so happened to have this deep connection with Hunter Biden that turns out to be quite suspicious, especially when you look at how they've got these campaign contributions going to Hillary for America and Lindsey Graham and John McCain, and that's a part of the bundling group stuff that we were talking about earlier. This needs to be investigated, because this could be the story that ends up exposing No Name. And it will expose No Name and Lindsey Graham and what they were involved with in the Middle East, especially as far as, and not just them, I should say, Hillary and the rest, right? Because we're not going to go one way. But you can read this story for yourself. But remember that these two guys, this Sam Jahari, who's a Venezuelan U.S. citizen and from Lebanon who lived in Kuwait, and this Sheikh Rabani is a Saudi citizen who married an American citizen and former model. They had their hands in everything from building U.S. bases in Iraq to contracting to unfreeze Libyan assets around the world. They have given to many top Democrats, including Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Elliot Engel, Howard Berman, and numerous state Democrat parties. They also donated heavily to John McCain and Lindsey Graham. And these are the guys who are palling around with Hunter Biden. You guessed it, right? They met with Hunter Biden about working on a project to unfreeze Libyan assets in 2015 while his father was still vice president. Maybe we should be investigating these connections instead of wasting our time with this impeachment hoax from the Senate. Now, of course, here's the big story. So Zero Hedge got banned from Twitter after posting findings of an HIV insertions in a coronavirus bioweapon possibility, right? So what this is talking about, there's been a lot of people who have been doing this deep research on the coronavirus, and they've basically come down to say that a lot of the scholars seem to think that it might have been weaponized and it may have come from a weapons lab. And what is in Wuhan that people don't want anyone to know about? Oh yeah, that's right. The level 4 bio facility where they actually study and work with very highly dangerous bacteria and viruses, etc. So, and it's the only one, I think, in China, according to some report I heard earlier. But even if it's one of a few, a level 4 means that they deal with like the worst of the worst stuff. You're talking about coronavirus, SARS, smallpox, whatever, you name it, right? That means they're going into the top the viral infectious diseases. And Zero Hedge got kicked off the platform. Apparently, it seemed to be a permanent ban off Twitter. Which, look, I've read a lot of Zero Hedge stories. I don't agree with them all, but do I think they should be banned? No. And I think this is ridiculous. It's indicative of the culture that we live in today, where it's all about censorship. Right now, as I scroll through my Twitter feed, I keep seeing more and more countries basically banning travel from China. They're trying to quarantine China now, and China's complaining, but there's a lot of unanswered questions about how this virus get out. Okay, was it a weaponized version of a virus that somehow got out of one of their top level security biohazard facilities where they study and create and manufacture these kinds of viruses, bioweapons, right? And I think one of the theories that nobody wants to talk about is it possible that the Chinese government would sacrifice their own citizens to have a global pandemic that would end up basically weakening all of their enemies, everyone who's trying to stand up to them right now? I don't know. I'm asking the question, right? And I know that a lot of these communist regimes will always say for the greater good, and they'll end up slaughtering millions of people in order to save the greater good, right? And I think that's something we need to be cognizant of and ask these questions. And if you can't ask the questions, then what's it really worth, right? Ultimately, you got to be able to ask questions, and that's what we're doing here. So you guys, let me know. You can read this story and let me know what you think about it. I just thought that was interesting, but that's gonna pretty much wrap it up. A few more things before we go. Watch these videos, share them on your social media, get the word out that way. If you've never seen QAnon and you don't know what I'm talking about, watch this video right here. Also, make sure you leave your thoughts, theories, and insights below. I want to hear what you guys have to say about all of this. Also, go check out redpillliving.com/justinformed. They got this great new product. It's the Great Awakening Coffee. I think it's a clever name, a great product. Here are some of their top roasts that they have. You can get Costa Rican blend. You can get a breakfast blend, an Italian roast, some Colombia coffee. They even have the K-Cups, right? If you want to put them in your machine and have your morning coffee that way. But it's a great way to support the channel, and you can go using the link in the description and use the coupon code JUSTINFORMED to get 10% off your order. Go check it out today. That's redpillliving.com/justinformed, coupon code JUSTINFORMED to get 10% off. And let me know what you think. The coffee is great, so go try it out. Also, you can be brave and download the Brave browser. It's free, so if you want to help the channel out and you don't got a lot of money and you want a great product, this is the way to do it. Come here, use the link in the description, download the Brave browser. It's free. It's a great product. It's a better internet browser. Better than Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, whatever internet browser you're using now, it's better because it blocks the ads and it makes your internet experience that much better. So go download the Brave browser today. I really hope you guys go check that out. Also, a few other ways you can help out. Over here on Twitter at JustinformedU. That's the official Twitter handle. I'm over at justinformednews.com, the official website for Just Informed Talk. I'm over on BitChute, the backup channel, Just Informed Talk here. And also, there's a couple other ways you can help out, and they're both financial. It's Patreon, patreon.com/justinformedtalk. It's a monthly donation. You guys keep this channel alive. Your support is what keeps it going. That's all there is to it. So thank you, and you guys know who you are. You're the ones that keep this content coming on a regular basis. Also, I have a GoFundMe set up. If you want to make a one-time or anonymous donation, links to everything that we've talked about here today will be in the description. And that's pretty much it. But before we go, we do a segment at the end of each one of these episodes called God's Grace is Greater, where we talk about God's grace and how it is truly greater. And today, I want to share a verse with you out of the book of James, chapter 5, verse 7 through 11. And it says, "Therefore, brothers, be patient until the Lord's coming. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth and is patient with it until it receives the early and the late rains? You also must be patient. Strengthen your hearts, because the Lord's coming is near. Brothers, do not complain about one another, so that you will not be judged. Look, the judge stands at the door. Brothers, take the prophets who spoke in the Lord's name as an example of suffering and patience. See, we count as blessed those who have endured. You have heard of Job's endurance and have seen the outcome from the Lord. The Lord is very compassionate and merciful." And that's an important lesson I think we all need to take for ourselves. And I hope that it helps you in your heart and to quiet your heart and think about meditating on God's greatness and the glory of God that is in his compassion and his mercy for each and every one of us. And remember the suffering of all of those who came before us, right? The prophets who went through such hardships, and people like it says there, the suffering of Job. Remember that no matter what, we have God. We may go through tough times, but we have to remember we have God in our hearts, and God will pull us through this, and that includes through this evil that we are uncovering and exposing. So that's going to be it for me. I want to say thank you for watching this episode of Just Informed Talk. Remember to come here, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications, and hit it, punch it, tap it, elbow it, whatever. Hit the like button if you guys like this content and want to see me make more. But that's going to be it for me. Thanks for watching Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.